I'm with Spade Images and Production, LLC. It's a really crazy story, really with the cameras and whatnot. It really started probably around December of 2021. I was looking around to take pictures like portraits and whatnot, but I called a guy named Terry McCormick. Everybody pretty much knows Terry. I called him. I was like, hey, I'm pretty interested in doing some concert style photography. And he was like, well, come on over to the cannery, and we got a little show. I think Holy Lightning was playing that night. So I showed up and I did the whole night. I shot Holy Lightning and edited it within 24 hours, sent it back to him, and figured they'd be mediocre pictures. But he ended up liking them, and I think the next day he was like, hey, meet me back at the cannery. And that's when Haley Green had a concert going on, and then Haley was like, man, please do my pictures tonight. And it just been kicked off in high gear after that. So it's been every weekend, every other day. If I was off from work, I was shooting.
Rise, bastards of Zeus! Just remember your calling. Wake up now to your shroud. Born in dirt, braving the blood of the fallen. Driving down, self-building for redemption. From life, lost in the fractures of servitude. Unforgiven forever, relentless, the reckoning comes. Dead, step from the eyes of a luminous idol. just the same. Still blood is burning, this burning sun.
Terry Thibodeau with Killhammer, vocalist for Killhammer. Cold Comfort Brewing brewer, and let's see, Gulf Coast Metal Alliance founder and national president. All right, so a couple of bands started approaching me in 2016 about doing some beer for them and stuff, and we at around the same time we started talking about starting the Gulf Coast Metal Alliance, and the 5 bands that played at the first annual, or I guess it wouldn't have been first annual at that time, but the 5 bands that played there played at a place in Florida, and that's where we came up with the idea. And there were 5 bands from 4 different states: Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. And it felt good doing that show. Everybody was being, in camaraderie and all that stuff. So what we did was we sat down after the show and said, we got to do this more, and we went and designed the Gulf Coast Metal Alliance then, with the intention to expand with other bands, fans alike, just to get more people at shows and stuff. Shows have kind of like going up and down the whole time I've ever been involved with music. So it's had its peaks, and everybody gets older. Some people even fall out of music and don't even attend shows, let alone quit playing music. So what that was inspired to do was to try and get more people involved into the scene. Getting back to the beer part of it, somebody had asked me how they can get a beer from one of the bands that I was making beer for, and they're out of Pensacola. They were Grim War, one of the bands at that show that happened in January of 2017. And I told them, you have to go to one of their shows. I don't make the beer and then keep a bunch at my house. I give it to the bands. So when that guy asked me how he can get that beer, I was like, you got to go to a show. So what I wound up doing was getting all those bands involved. We all made a beer, individual specialty beer for each one of those bands, and then we had the very first festival. It worked out to where we did it a second time, and third and fourth, and now we're coming upon the 5th time.
So my name is William Pilkin. I grew up in Slidell, Louisiana. Started out when I was about 8 years old, playing guitar. I always wanted a guitar. My mom and dad would not buy me one because I was too young. So I told them one year that I wanted a guitar for Christmas. We never believed in Santa Claus. It was not a thing in our house, right? So I told them I wanted a guitar. They're like, no, you're not getting one. All right. Well, next year come around for Christmas, I wanted a guitar. They told me no again. Well, I told both of them that I didn't want nothing for Christmas then. Don't buy me nothing. So they bought me a guitar. It did exactly what they knew it was going to do. It sat in the closet and didn't get played until about 3 years later. Then I picked it up. I seen Breaking Benjamin live for my first concert. And when I seen that concert, it made me want to play guitar. I wanted to do that. So fast forward in, I taught myself. Never got no lessons because I grew up in a poor home. We couldn't afford things. So I taught myself how to play guitar off of YouTube. That's when YouTube just come out, Learned from there, and now I'm here, and that's all I want to do is play music. I prefer, rock music, like kind of heavier. Not so much metal, just, clean vocals, hard choruses, stuff like that. So.
Do you feel like YouTube coming out at that time kind of helped a lot of kids that, did
I believe so, yeah.
shows?
Yeah, I believe so. Because, like me and hundreds or more millions of people out there that just didn't have the money or the funds to put their kids through the music school to do it, So, yeah, I feel like YouTube was a big improvement with me learning music. And if it wouldn't have been there, I might not have learned it.
No, I don't want you thinking this is just another heartbreak song. tell you I'm drinking whiskey to help me move on. As quickly as she stole the night on the wind, she was gone. So were the lives of many by the end of the dawn. In her eye lives the sorrow of the broken. In her way lies a city in darkness. The tears paved a river with nowhere to run to. The children of Homer, where she left her mark. No, I don't want you thinking this is just another heartbreak song. I won't tell you we're drinking to help move pain along. And I don't have the answer. I don't know why. There could be so much carnage in the blink of an eye. She blew in like a whirlwind, and in a moment she was gone. And so was a piece of our hearts by the end of the dawn.
The main thing about an open mic is you're going to have comedians there that are trying out brand new bits that they might have never tried before, and they may or may not be good, but that's part of the fun. And then you also get people just practicing old ones to get like their 20-minute sets down and stuff like that. So you get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And usually what happens is everybody gets 5 minutes. You go up, I time you, and then at 4 minutes, I light you. You got a minute to wrap it up and finish your joke. And yeah.
My name is Brandy St. Cyr. I am one of the owners of Clarion Sage Apothecary in Pascagoula, Mississippi. So I actually can. So apothecaries actually started as like the one person in town. A lot of them were the local witches and things like that. They knew the healing herbs. They knew how to get rid of certain things. And a lot of the lore of apothecaries were very much steeped in that old tradition. As time went on, it became like the medicine man. It became the guy who knew how to mix the stuff, you know, and it was always passed down generations and generations. And then came the pharmacies, basically. So the pharmacists would be the apothecary, and they would also carry like small grocery items and things of the sort. In the 1800s, that changed, and it split into two things. So you had your local grocer, and then you had your local apothecary. So the apothecaries then became guilds, and it became the modern day pharmacy. So we actually, in our our apothecary, we're kind of going a little further back into the older ways. So into, you know, this herb will help with this tea will help with that kind of a thing. Because the world has become so crazy, it's just kind of nice to kind of step back and go, well, this made sense then. Why doesn't it still make sense? Because the stuff still does the same things.
Play your favorite song on my awful computer speakers. You can sing along, I don't mind. And I still see your face from time to time. And I still dream about it from time to time. The very specific sound of shrubbery scraping a window screen. You could sleep through it all, I swear you could sleep through anything. And I still see your face from time to time. I don't really mind. And I still dream about it from time to time. I don't really mind. 'Cause I'm an optimist dressed like a pessimist in this life, I guess. I'm an optimist dressed like a pessimist in this life, I guess. I'm an optimist dressed like a pessimist in this life, I guess. There doesn't have to be any sort of long goodbye. There doesn't have to be any sort of long goodbyes. And I still see your face from time to time. I don't really mind. And I still dream about it from time to time. I don't really mind. 'Cause I'm an optimist dressed like a pessimist in this life, I guess. I'm an optimist dressed like a pessimist in this life, I guess.
We're talking about Silas Palooza. So Silas is, I got his little shirt on today. Silas is my 10-year-old boy who was diagnosed with brain cancer November of 2019, ependymoma brain cancer. And, you know, it was really, you know, rough on the family. And, you know, we were in the hospital for about 5 months. And we met a lot of wonderful people and found a lot of resources out there while we were in the hospital we had no idea existed. And we wanted to give back now that he's doing so well. He's 2 years cancer-free, which is incredible. You know, he's still struggling, he's still healing, but you know, we want to give back to the community like people gave to us while we were in the hospital. So that's why we're putting this benefit.
My name is Julia Reyes, and I am an artist. I do murals and custom work, just kind of creative habitats in ways. So
You're inspired by nature?
I am inspired by nature. It's kind of my meditative part of my practice is to just sort of get out in nature, clear my head. So I like to learn about, the interconnectedness of different processes and in nature, and that factors in. It's not always very literal in my work, but it definitely factors into kind of my way of being.
My name is Rachel Dangermond, and I'm the director of the 100-Man Hall. And how I got to the 100-Man Hall was a long and windy tale, but I was an investigative reporter for Wall Street for all of my career. Lost my job 2011. Was living in New Orleans, trying to figure out how to make a living in New Orleans as a writer and an investigative reporter. And that was very difficult. So I started doing writers' workshops in my home. And I wanted to buy a double and do writers' workshops in the other side of my home, not in my home. And so I was looking around and had been looking for a double for a while. And a friend who lived in Bay St. Louis sent me a link for a blues hall that was for sale. And when she sent it, I thought, why the hell would I want to live in a blues hall? It made absolutely no sense to me. I had no interest. And then a series of events happened, a series of unfortunate events happened. And I found myself like, I just want to get out of New Orleans. And I can't believe I was saying that because I am a New Orleanian. And I found that I wanted to be in Bay St. Louis. I wanted to raise my young son there. And I just wanted more freedom for him, more freedom for me. And I love the sort of chill energy that the Bay had. So I went one morning, called the agent and said, can I look at this? And I had no idea what it was. I'd never heard of it, nothing. And the guy, Jesse, who was the previous owner, comes and opens the door. And I walked in, and it was like, I don't know what it was like, but I can tell you this. I've only had that experience one other time, and that's when I adopted my son, met my son who I adopted. He was 9 months old, and I walked in, and I knew with divine clarity that I was supposed to be doing that. And I had the same feeling when I walked in the hall. I walked in, and I was like, something was just, this is what you're doing. And I didn't even know what it was. I mean, I was thinking I wanted a place to have writers' workshops. And this was a big old hall. And it had some history attached to it that I had kind of heard about, but I really didn't know that much about. And so then I bought the hall. We moved ourselves over here. We live in back of the hall because the previous owners had put a home in back of it. And I mean, a 2-bedroom apartment in back of it. So we moved in, and I was in there, and I started just, going to Frugal's, the family grocery store. And there this guy was stocking cans. And he said, you that lady that bought the hall? When I was about this big, I snuck in behind my brother's legs and saw Sam Cooke playing there. And then this other woman said, when I was 13, they wouldn't let me in the hall, but I sat on the front steps and the door was closed. But Etta James was in there singing, and you could hear like she was standing right out here. And I just kept hearing these stories, and they were crazy stories. I mean, stories that were like, they still, like, they give me goosebumps. And the place itself gives me goosebumps. It is alive with an energy that was infused in it by the people who started it. And so I got very curious about what was going on, and and then sort of came to learn the story. And that is in 1894, 12 civic-minded black men in the community formed a DBA, a Death and Burial Association. And they called it the 100 Members Debating Benevolent Association. And that's very kind of highfalutin, but they were educated, and I don't think there was any debating going on, but they did a lot of civic activity together. And they also had a kitty, and they raised money for medical reasons, for burial reasons in the black community. And this was time of Jim Crow, segregation, so it was dark times in America. And but that group of people grew, and there was women who formed groups under that group. And I've heard every tale. Like one guy told me, oh yeah, when I was young, I used to ride my donkey over here to get my 25 cents from my dad, who belonged to the 100 Men. And those stories are just every day. And so one guy who was in the organization worked for the rail yard, which is right across the street from us. And he saw this land for sale, and it's almost an acre, and it was $100. And so he bought it, and he donated it to the organization. And then they would meet and have picnics, and then they built an open-air pavilion, and then they built the hall. I mean, and it is, it's 3,500 square feet. It is a big juke joint. But they built this hall, and they built on a big kitchen on the side, which was like a commissary type place. But that's where they would have their meetings. And so they would meet once a month, and everybody pay their dues, and they say, okay, Mandy went to the doctor, and her doctor's bill $3. Can we pay all of it this month, or half of it, or what do we want to do? And so they would organize and pay those bills. And then if Scott, Mandy's husband, dropped dead, they would go over to her house and give her $250 to handle his burial and the funeral arrangements. So it was a benevolent association. But it also became a place where people gathered, and in gathering, they also were entertaining themselves.
My name is Jordan.
And my name is Matthew.
And I am from Latimer, St. Martin area.
Same, Parker Road, Jackson County, 228.
Yeah, Broadnax.
Yeah.
Right across from Creek Church Country Corner.
What, son?
Yeah.
But no, so we've been, podcasting together now for about 2 years.
Yes.
But we've been friends for much, much longer than that.
We spent a lot of time growing up going to church together.
Church was a big part of it.
Riding Brooks's mom's minivan. Listen to a lot of WOW CDs.
Yeah, WOW 95,
yeah,
96, 97. But I think the main thing was we met in school. We
Miss Haggerty's class.
Yeah, Haggerty Wilson, career discovery.
That's a Kingpin Tattoo's wife.
Yeah, who would have known that? You know, your teachers, you had them up here whenever you were a kid, and then you get older and you realize that we're all just human, right?
True.
Yeah. So shout out Miss Haggerty.
So I remember our first when we met as friends. We actually went to a Wednesday church youth group together, and we did it. After that, it was history. We've played World of Warcraft together. We've
you just got that friend that you can vibe with, and you look at, and you know that you can clown on something, or just you don't have to necessarily say it. You can look at someone.
Hold on, Brooks. So tell the truth. That Brooks is like, you ever seen the movie Jack? Brooks was 5'10" at the age of like 11, and I got cerebral palsy, so I was handicapped, and Brooks was kind of like my bodyguard. I ain't gonna lie to you.
So
we had an advantage here.
They called me Matthew the Man-Child Brooks.
True story.
Back then, and I had a beard, and I used to have to carry my my birth certificate around with me whenever I played Little League, just so I could play. The parents are like, he's not going against our kid, and. But yeah, and I haven't grown since then. So then I had to watch all my friends catch up and exceed me. So
we're from the South. I mean, we're from the Gulf Coast. There's a lot of people like us. To be honest with you.
Yeah, and one of the things I think we love is to show people how much I guess relatability they have with one another. And again, two guys that grew up, in the same area, they love, some of the same hobbies. You're gonna have some relatable things, and then at that point you can bounce good ideas off them.
Like, think about this. Like, I mean, you always have that friend in school where you went to school dances with, Sadie Hawkins, right? And that's how we rolled. We got to experience that, and that's a good thing for when we decided to do this show. We're just bringing you into our life. I mean, and we have, from our guests we have on, we talk about this, from the mayors to our art teacher. Shout out Miss Heiss.
Yeah, UFO abductees, Calvin Parker.
To each guest we have on, they're just individual people, and we just gain knowledge. All we're doing is, I don't know if you're seeing Batman, but when Jim Carrey when he's the Riddler, and he has a TV that takes your knowledge, it's kind of how we do our show. Like, we learn from everybody that comes on our show.
And I call that a knowledge transfer.
Shaking them bones, throwing a stone. Shaking them bones, won't leave me alone. Like nicotine, like gasoline, can't shake those feelings, and she's burning me down. Like a bloodhound sniffing me out, losing my balance, gonna hit the ground. Proclivity, my ecstasy, swimming through my veins and checking me out. Shaking them bones, throwing a stone. Shaking them bones, won't leave me alone. Down, down, down. Too much of her, I'm the connoisseur, but too much rain leaves the crops to dry. Not enough of her will cause a stir. Without the rain, the land is in a drought. I'm in a binding state of mind. Too much of her I don't know enough about. Like a plaything, got me on a string. It's too late now that I'm having now. Shaking them bones, throwing a stone. Shaking them bones, won't leave me alone. Down, down, down. breaking them bones won't leave me alone. Bringing me down, down, down. Bringing me down, down, down. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Chandelier's been open for 7 years. Well, almost 7 years. We'll be coming up on our 7th birthday in May. We'll be doing Shandy Fest. It will be the 7th annual Shandy Fest. We're really excited. It'll be an all-day event starting at noon, ending at 7. 3 live bands, bed races, and lots of fun for family and friends.